It is time for yet another roster breakdown featuring Finch, and I'm glad to be here to talk a little bit about some of the rosters you can expect moving into Season 6 of Smite. And the more I go through these lists, man, the more excited that I get. Even some teams that you might consider near the bottom are still stacked with talent. I mean, as I'm going through doing some research on them, just refreshing, making sure that I'm caught up on it, I really just can't believe some of the awesome talent that we have here in the league. So I'm excited. But as always, I'll try to stream at those times. We'll see. I should stop bringing it up because I'm probably not going to do it. I need to more, though. Maybe this will make me do it if I hold myself accountable. Also, follow me at HireSfinch on Twitter. That's the best way to know when I go live in any of those things, because I'll tweet about it instead of following a schedule like a responsible person would. But either way, let's move on to the actual roster breakdown that you all came here for, where I talk a little bit about LG. I know this is a team that a lot of people have at the bottom going into Season 6, and I think there's good reason for that. Our rosters are so strong everywhere else that there's some question marks. I mean, I don't even have pictures of Joshy and Mollusk over there. So, like, I mean, obviously there's some question marks for that team, right? And I'll try to talk a little bit about each one of them individually, because this isn't so much like with Splice, where I can talk about them as a team before, or like with Pittsburgh Knights, where we can talk about where I think their place is, as much as teams so much more of a question mark. So I'll try and break down what I think each of them needs to do individually a little bit if I want them to succeed. But I think this is also a team with some upside. You know, I think there's like a chance LG could be like sneaky good middle of the pack and not necessarily near the bottom. And there's a couple of good reasons. One of those reasons is Kiki so cheeky. I'll start with the support. For some reason, I wrote my notes out of line. So I told myself I wasn't going to write a bunch of paragraphs, but I kind of did. So hopefully it won't sound too much like I'm reading as I go through all this stuff I wrote about all these guys, because, you know, I don't know. I feel so passionate about all of them doing well. So it's been a minute since Kiki was in the support role, but isn't being on like a janky, not good team kind of Kiki's wheelhouse in a way. No other player's been thrown around the way that Kiki has in every different role. He's played solo, mid, he's played support. Now he's back here to support again. He's also used to roster swaps. I mean, he was on Envy and LG and Trifecta, even all the way back to Snipe, where that roster could never stay the same either. So Kiki's certainly used to an environment like this, where maybe sometimes on paper the team can look like a hodgepodge or like the leftovers all put together. And for what's worth, that Trifecta team was not that bad that Kiki was on. It actually did kind of well. So certainly I think they could make something from nothing, and they've done it before. And the good news is, I don't even think this team's nothing. I don't even think they're starting from zero. They've got a really good squad here. You hear it all the time about Kiki in particular, that he's a mechanical nutcase who always makes the best out of bad situations. We say the term losing lane graciously, and I think that gets misconstrued as in he's good at playing from behind, but I don't even think that's what it means. What I mean is that someone like Kiki is good at playing when he knows there's not going to be much help. Like on the solo lane, they often threw him over there, and the jungler wouldn't even much come see him. And so he knew that oftentimes he'd be getting ganked, he'd have to survive 2v1s, or that he'd be losing blue buffs and stuff like that all the time. When we say someone who can lose graciously, I think what we mean is when, as part of the game plan, they're not going to be getting much backup or help or support from the team, and Kiki oftentimes is that person where it just kind of falls to him to deal with it. Perhaps because he really just can deal with it. So I think that's something that could potentially help him out. It's going to be really tough for him in Season 6, though. The support pool is stacked. I think I'm going to be releasing my support tier list pretty soon here. I don't know exactly how these are going to order out. It might already be out, and I might sound like a fool. But either way, it's a tough group of players for Kiki to try and rejoin, and he's got to get refreshed. You know, it's been a while since it's something that he's done on the same level as a lot of these other players. Hopefully he's on the grind. I think it is something that he can do. And he has a ton of raw talent around him between Oceans and Joshy and Xaylia. So if he can get to the point where he can really bolster those players, then I think LG could be in a really good spot. A lot of this is going to be on Kiki's shoulders. Similarly, for his mid laner, Oceans. For some reason, I've put Joshy way down the list, and we'll get back to him some other time. I don't know why I wrote it this way, but I did. Obviously a former SPL player, so Oceans has been here before. He's in LG garb in the picture that I found of him, so ALG garb, so you know he's been here before. Been a hunter and a mid, so I'm excited to see how he's going to make the transition to mid. Maybe it'll help him some to have some, you know, memory recollection of what it was like to play from the hunter role too, and try to help him out. Was a coach sub on LG, something like that. He was both. He was kind of moving around a little bit, and obviously started for ALG back in like what seasons 3 and 4. I think even some Envy was splashed in there too, and they actually had a decent amount of success. So I know Oceans played in the SML most recently, but I think that there's plenty on this guy's resume. And I even got a chance to talk with him. It was really nice. I talked to him and Kiki and Van, actually. They were able to come by the studio a little while ago. You saw them on Season 6 patch notes to give some ideas. Oceans was there too. And I hadn't gotten a chance to talk to him much, and I loved the way he talked about the game. You know, Kiki and I would go back and forth a lot. Van especially was very vocal, but Oceans didn't talk quite as much as them. But every time he did speak, he was thinking about the game differently from us. He had a take on the game. He knew a lot of stuff more than me for sure, and was able to even help me through some stuff. So it was great sort of to get in to hear his perspective, and that gives me a lot of confidence in what Oceans is going to be able to do for this team. You know, if he can bring that same mindset, that same mentality, where they're able to make sure that they're maybe a cerebral team and can think about the game a little bit better, I think that can certainly help them out. And he's also mechanically strong too, as demonstrated by switching back and forth, I think, between multiple roles. He was also a good player, a star player really, on that Very Nice to Me team, which Mollusk was also a part of, and we'll get a chance to talk about Mollusk as well. So, you know, those two have some experience playing together, and that synergy is going to be important. He's back up with the big boys, though. I know he's got a knack for doing better than what people expect. No reason why that should be any different here. I'm expecting good things from Oceans. And he's coming into what I think is the most shallow position in the SPL right now, which is probably the safest way to say that, and the most accurate way to say it. With only Zeros and Paul, I think, as truly dominant mid laners right now. As mid laners that will not just do what they need to do for their team better than anyone else, but like shut you out of the mid lane. Like Paul and Zeros will punish you for not being as good at them in the mid lane, which is why I don't have Moswell in there. As good as I think Moswell is, I don't know if his bully potential is quite the same level as them, which is the most important thing I think for comparing the disparity between these mid laners, which is that Zeros and Paul will actively put you behind. Like, you're gonna lose now because you're up against Zeros, or you're up against Paul, and I'm playing Hobwa, and good luck. Yeah, I don't know if Moswell does quite that same thing, though he is excellent within the confines of what his team needs it to do. I don't know if he always translates that so much into bullying you out of lane. So we'll see if that's something Moswell can bring. But I think that what that does is it opens up the door a bit for Ocean and some of these other sort of newer mid laners or less experienced mid laners, which I think is more accurate for Oceans, at least recently, is that I don't know if there's just enough people out there to truly punish you for maybe not having quite as much recent experience SPL-wise in playing the mid lane role. So I think Oceans is a good chance to do well. Obviously then, you know, we're talking about Kiki's experience and Ocean's experience. I think everyone knows, obviously, Zelia is a beast, and I'll talk to him towards the end because he's such an old school player, that there's plenty of experience there. For me, the question marks are the guys who I literally don't have photographed here, Joshi and Mollusk, right? How well can these two perform? Joshi, obviously, of Challenger Cup and SML fame, was on Insignum. I think probably the best SML team on average last year. They have virtually stuck together the whole time. I think they had to make a swap at the support role with SK, the team up in the SPL on the EU side of things. But if you had to pick one group to win a game from the SML last year, just across the entire year, I think you probably would have picked Insignum. Mollusk has a similar, though slightly less consistent pedigree. He was on Very Nice to Me with Oceans. He's been an SCL and Challenger Cup player for years now, and I'm going to make sure everyone heard I said SCL. He's done some console stuff too. So Mollusk, maybe that gives him a unique perspective, right? Having been on a whole different platform and trying to see how that'll help him out. So these two guys, I think, are the ones where there's the most variance on how well this LG team can do. Mollusk is going to have a difficult job, I think, trying to make sure he's a top-tier jungler. Not only is the jungler pool very strong right now, I think it is the second shallowest, but at the top end, they'll punish you for sure. I mean, there's so many good ones up there that can absolutely embarrass you if you're not careful in the SPL right now. And his playstyle in particular can put him in trouble. Mollusk likes to play really big. Like, think of him like a batter who always swings wide, right? Who always goes for big swings. That's what it feels like with Mollusk. And sometimes he does home run and knock out of the park, and now all of a sudden Mollusk is way out in front of you, and good luck stopping this guy. But just as often, it'll be a big swing and a big miss, right? And he never made contact with the ball, and it shot right past him. So if he can bring that variance down a little bit, then I think Mollusk can do this job serviceably well, especially with someone as seasoned as Kiki on the team and someone as mechanically strong as Oceans to back him up. But it depends for me on how well they can control that variance from Mollusk, rein that in a little bit. Sometimes my man just makes some straight up wrong moves, and I'm like, I don't know why you did that. I don't know why he jumped in there. Maybe he's just confidence, and my man just thinks he's better than everyone, which is good. I mean, I'd rather have someone who's more willing to jump in than not, because you can't teach them to be more willing, but you can rein in a little bit. So you'd rather have that than nothing. And then Joshi is in a tough spot as well. I just talked about my Hunter tier list already, and you saw I had him down there near the bottom. So I don't know if I have the highest expectations for him, or if the Hunter pool is just that deep. I think that's probably a little bit more fair to say. But I'll have Kiki there with him, who's not as experienced in the support role. So between those two, they're going to have to find some kind of way to be able to hang with some of the best duo lanes out there, like Cyclone Spin and or Roar, or like Arkle and PBM now, who's going to be coming out as well. So, or Arkle and Trix, right? I mean that's equally scary. I'm sorry, Vote and Trix, Arkle PBM is the actual one. Sorry, I got that mixed up there. They're new rosters. We're learning them, everybody. So we'll get them all together. So it's not going to be easy for those two in particular, but there's some upside potential, right? If Mollusk is rolling nat 20s, right? If Oceans is able to jump back into that role, if Kiki can learn the ropes soon enough, they have a good chance. But for me, I think the biggest, most important factor here is that Xaylia is going to have to step his game up in the solo lane. And I kind of focus on him, not because he's been playing poorly, like that might sound like I'm bagging on him, but it's anything but. I think Xaylia has that potential. He's shown it to us before. So we got to see it from him again, right? On Obey, he could sometimes fall into the shadows, you know, doing his job well, but not standing out. This LG team, I mean, they're going to need a superstar. They're going to need someone who can win games for them. And he's probably the best poised out of everyone on the team to do that, just in terms of what we've seen from them before, in terms of their ability to just outplay everyone else. He's been around since virtually day one, so is Kiki for that point. But I mean, my man used to play with the likes of Sayo and Smek. Jesus, some of that's before even I was watching Smite, some of that stuff. But I mean, he's just been around so long. Remember, he was on Exposed, Secrets, Trig, and Paradigm, and he was dominant on all those teams. He was a solo lane nightmare in all those games. They're going to need that kind of level of Xaylia performance if this LG team doesn't want to be at the bottom. If Xaylia can perform at that level, if they can rein in Mollusk's variance and get him to play a little bit more consistently, if Oceans and Kiki can learn the ropes quick enough and get back up to speed, and if Joshi's considerable SML talent is directly transferable to the SPL, then this team can do way better than the bottom, and I expect to be at the middle of the pack. If not, if even a couple of those aren't true and they fall apart, then so too will this team, and they could certainly struggle. I'm excited, though, to see what they can do. There's some sneaky upside, I think, to this LG roster, so I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to do.